Hey, Winfrey Church, hope you're doing well today. I want to ask you a question to start off. Okay, here we go. Do you know who God is? Do you know who God is? I think every once in a while we just need a reminder. I just want today to be a heartfelt, encouraging reminder to everybody. We can know who God is, and He's good. The Bible talks so much about the character of God in so many different ways. It tells stories that show us who God is. It gives us verses that give us attributes about the nature and the character of God. But each one of us needs an experience of who God is in our life. And so I want to share with you an experience I had years ago in California. When I was living there, I was young, single, footloose, and fancy-free. And I had just started my ministry life as a pastor. I was going to seminary and doing all that. But I had also just come out of a really hard season of my life. I had shared my testimony at church a couple times. You know, I had years and years of a struggle with addiction. And that just, addiction and depression and all the things that come with that. And I was just coming out of that season of my life, which was amazing. But I needed a lot of healing and just, I needed a lot of good people around me. And starting into ministry, it was a good season of life. It was a good healing, redemptive season of my life. And because it was that kind of a season, it was a time in my life when I really felt close to God. I had been radically transformed, and I felt close to God. I felt like I knew who God was, and I wanted to get closer and closer to God Himself. This was me building my relationship with God Himself. It wasn't just the things I had read in the Bible. It wasn't my, spiritual, religious life growing up as a kid. It was me now developing, and not developing, but putting, establishing my relationship with God Himself. So during that season, I was living with a roommate there in a house, and every night before I went to bed, I would pray, and I really would try to almost picture God. Like I said, I wanted to really develop a one-on-one relationship, and so as I prayed, I would picture God, up in heaven, or I'd picture Jesus, and just try to get some kind of a connection, that was really personal. So I did all that, went to bed one night, and about 2-3 in the morning, I was asleep, and I was woken up by a knock like that. And the sound though it was audible. It was clearly an audible knock, but it was also something that I heard in my head. It wasn't like I woke up and then I heard it at the front door. I was hearing it as I was sleeping, kind of like you do when you're in a dream and you're experiencing something in a dream and then you're coming out of it and you're also hearing it, experiencing it in real life, that kind of transition. It was one of those. And so I heard the knock and got up actually right away, went down to the front door, nobody there. Okay, that was odd. Went back to bed and just laid down, and just as I was starting to fall asleep, I heard the knock again. Okay, got up, ran down, and everything. And at that point, I knew it wasn't somebody at the front door. From the time I was in my bed to the time I went down was really pretty quick. I looked all around, down the street and everything, and there was nobody there. And I just had this sense that this was not somebody knocking at the door as a prank in the middle of the night. And I kind of felt like Samuel, getting up and hearing the sound, getting up and going back to bed. And, Eli says, it wasn't me who called you, go back to bed. And so I did that a couple times. And I finally just heard God say, and that wasn't an audible voice. It was just this very clear picture, or very clear phrase in my mind, and I knew it was God. And He said, that knock was me. And I thought, does God do that? I don't know if I've experienced something like that before, and He said that knock was me. And it was so clear that it was God. I don't know how to describe it, but unless you've had an experience, with it, it was God. And so then I started to kind of pray, and I said, okay, why did you wake me up in the middle of the night? And He said, I just woke you up to tell you that I loved you. And that, I'm telling you, I will never forget that experience. It was one of the most profound moments I've ever had in my life with God, even though it sounds crazy, because I knew it was God. But more than that, it was God speaking to me and reminding me who he was. And I needed that in my life. I needed just to know, after everything I had been through, that God loved me. And so I want to encourage you today. Sometimes God's doing that. Sometimes God is just knocking on the door of your heart and he's saying, I want to remind you who I am. Yeah, okay, God, I know you're good. I know, I read it in the Bible. I know you're loving, all that. And he's like, yeah, that's the point. You're going through your daily life and you know it. But do you really know it? Do you really understand, God says, that I love you? Do you really understand who I am in your life? There's a verse that we know very, very well, Galatians 5, starting verse 22, and it's the fruit of the Spirit. But we always think of this verse as this is the fruit of the Spirit that God wants us to have. But I want you to reframe it. If this is the fruit of the Spirit that God wants us to have, but it's coming from the Spirit, it's coming from the Spirit of God, which means that this is who God is. So with that lens, let me read this. It's not just that God wants us to have these things. God himself is love. God is joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. That's who God is. Some of those it's easy for us to think about. God is love. Okay, I know that. God is faithful. I know that. And we still need a reminder of that, but they're easier for us to wrap our heads around. What about joy? That God is joy. God is full of joy. God is not up there in heaven sad all the time, even though there's plenty of things to be sad about. But he's a God of joy that wants to give us that same joy. That God is a God of peace. That again, he's not up there worrying about every little thing that's going on and wondering what he's going to do and stressing out. God is not stressed. God is at peace. God is gentle. Yeah, he can be forceful. And he can be kind of overt and big, and he can be violent, but he's gentle. He doesn't come into our life raging and yelling and demanding that we do A, B, C, or D. He's gently moving us towards the ways he would have us go. That God is a God of self-control. That God isn't just up there willy-nilly, having an emotional fit and doing things in the world, punishing people and causing pain and doing this and that just to, appease his emotions. God is a God of self-control. And he follows his character, and he follows his promises, and he is somebody that we can trust. There's another great verse, and I'll close with this, that we can kind of say off the top of our head, his mercies are new every morning. But that verse actually comes from Lamentations 3. Lamentations, the book of the Bible where Jeremiah, the prophet, is lamenting the fact that Israel's been taken into captivity, that they've lost everything, their culture, their people, all of it's gone, their temple, and they've lost their God. And in the middle of that, Jeremiah writes, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every single morning. Great is your faithfulness. If Jeremiah can write that in the middle of the worst period of Israel's history, then we can be encouraged this morning. And every morning, his mercies are new. He loves you. He is walking with you, and he will not betray his character. He will be who he says he is. And you can count on that he does love you. He'll never forsake you. That he's joyful, he's full of peace, and that he's ready always to work in your life. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.